humor inspires trust. And that's interesting because there's something about, in some cases, someone has to make themselves vulnerable to make a joke. Sometimes it's a shield, but sometimes it's making yourself vulnerable. You have to have a keen perception, especially if you're not actually a performer. You have to have a keen perception of like, who's in the room, what's the joke, what's appropriate. And when you nail that, they'll trust you because they know you're paying attention. They know you're reading the room. They know that you're speaking to you.
Hey, dear listeners, we need to let you know that Kevin and Stephanie offer investment advice through Private Advisor Group, which is a federally registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations to any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Now let's get on with the show. This is Take Back Retirement, the show that's redefining retirement for women. Retirement is an old-fashioned cultural concept. We want to reclaim the word so you can make it your own. I'm Stephanie McCullough, financial planner and founder of Sophia Financial, where our mission is to reduce women's money stress and empower them to make wise, holistic decisions so they can get back to living their best lives. Kevin Gaines is my longtime colleague with deep knowledge in the technical stuff, investments, taxes, and retirement plan rules. He's a little bit geeky and quantitative. I'm a little bit touchy-feely and qualitative. Together, through conversations and interviews, we aim to give you the information and motivation you need to move forward with confidence. We're so glad you're here. Coming to you semi-live from the beautiful West Lakes Office Park in suburban Philadelphia, this is Stephanie McCullough and Kevin Gaines of Sophia Financial and American Financial Management Group. Say hello, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Today, we're going in a slightly different direction. Our guest is Lynn Harris. Lynn is a culture-shifting producer, award-winning journalist, and author or co-author of 6 books. Her comedy and campaigns for social justice and gender equity have changed laws and conversations from Capitol Hill to NASCAR. She's founder and CEO of Gold Comedy, a comedy school, professional network, and content studio, which she's going to tell us about. She co-created Breakup Girl, one of the first multi-platform internet success stories, and served as the first VP of Communications at global human rights group Breakthrough, where her blend of humor and advocacy powered some of the team's most effective U.S. campaigns. She has also worked as a Tonya Harding lookalike, which she says is a long story. Let's get into our conversation with Lynn. Lynn Harris, welcome to Take Back Retirement.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited about this conversation because it's definitely kind of different than anyone else we've spoken to. Lynn, what are you doing now in the world and how did you come to be doing it?
Well, thanks for asking. I am founder of Gold Comedy, which is the comedy school and professional network and content studio where women and non-binary creators and others come to build their comedy careers or their creative side hustles and join a powerful community and make funny stuff that actually gets seen on all different kinds of stages and screens. And I came to it after it's sort of all my other careers, which were always sort of intertwined, all kind of funneled into this. I was a journalist for many years. I did stand-up for many years. And kind of the big tractor beam that that drew me where everything coalesced was the idea of that comedy matters, that pop culture matters, that what if we could use comedy, pop culture, all those things to, for good, to not just distract us and not just entertain us, which they do, but also to be a force for change. I'm not the first person to have that idea at all, but it is one that has always been very powerful to me, and one that, of course, is a great excuse for watching lots of television. And then in particular with comedy, I like to say that comedy is power, because when you make people laugh, you make people listen. And so what my company does is, as I said, for individuals, it's, we're helping individuals. Comedy's hard for everyone, right? even straight white dudes. But we try to make it easier for the people for whom it's the hardest, not just because comedy is work and women are people, but also because in the aggregate, since comedy is a cultural force, it matters who does it. It matters what they're creating. It matters who we see. So I see us as contributing to that. And that is my goal. And so yeah, I came to it just because I like comedy, honestly. Like it was, we had, when I was growing up, it was The Muppet Show. It was I Love Lucy. It was Laugh-In. It was Carol Burnett, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was just always the water that I swam in and that I was always drawn to. I never had like a big stepwise plan to get to this point, not at all. But that was always where I was sort of felt summoned. And so here I am.
I love it. So, Lynn, since our show is talking to women midlife and better, right? Like, how do you think that what you're doing is relevant to our people? I know you have thoughts.
Yes, I have thoughts. Yes, a lot of people who are in and around gold comedy are in their 20s and 30s. They're maybe just out of college and very serious about comedy and looking for their crew. They're maybe well into a comedy career and looking for the skills and opportunities that we offer. That's all true. And we also have this very vocal, powerful, creative, awesome cohort of women in their 40s, 50s, and better who have come to us at a certain life moment, right? Who, whether they're looking at all of a sudden they're looking around at an empty nest, or maybe I still have that, like, I think it's partly a COVID plus midlife thing of like, is this all there is? Post-COVID, when we all thought that, like, what am I doing with my time?
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's empty nest. And a lot of them are already very accomplished, obviously, or certainly because they've been around in their careers related to entertainment or not. Some are.
Okay.
And they come to us basically like, all right, I'm doing this. It's not just, I'm going to try this because bucket list, although that's fine. And we love that. But it's really like, I'm doing this. I have always wanted to do stand-up. And whether it's like, I could never be out at night because kids, or whether it's, which by the way, many stand-ups do that with kids. It's doable. Don't let it stop you. It's hard, but it's doable. But, whether it's because they, had other constraints, or because, we all heard that, any of us heard that message that like, women don't need to be funny. Women aren't funny. Shush. Or whether it's because for whatever reason, they've been like had to be doing other things, but they've got either a desire to test out their writing or performing, or they've got a specific idea, like for a show or either a podcast or a film that they've had sitting on their brain, on their heart, in a drawer. And they're like, when else am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have our typical offerings, even just our stand-up boot camp class is perfect for that. But then we also have, for example, I'll just say briefly, a class that is perfect for that moment. If you're in that place where you just like have an idea that you can't stop thinking about, but you don't know what to do with it, which is a class where you build that idea into a fully realized plan, or whether it's a TV show, film, podcast, whatever. And you leave the class with a fully prepared, polished, practiced industry standard pitch that is ready to deliver to, for example, TV people.
Okay.
And those people in those classes do go on to get their pilots into festivals and get things made. And for example, we have Billie, who she lives in Portland, and she has a long career in public health. And I hope I can swear a little on your show.
Of course.
Pilot called Batshit Debbie that she developed which is loosely autobiographical, but she developed in this class, and that is now like in development with a well-known comedian attached. So like that, she was just like, I'm doing this. So I have other examples, but it's just this moment of like, whether it's a little extra time or a little extra frustration.
Yeah.
With just like, when else am I going to do that? And a little, frustration with waiting for the right time.
Right.
That those are the things that drive these women. And, candidly, the woman, Ryan, who teaches the pitching class, she developed it. It's a college level class. She developed it in a college setting, and for reasons brought it to us. And she's like, Lynn, I love my college students. No shade. I love the energy of the 20 something or younger. But she's like, these women, they have even more energy. They have even more life to draw on, even if their projects aren't specifically autobiographical. They just come fully baked and ready to go.
Cool.
So for our listeners, Lynn, when they are the people that come to you that are represented by our listeners, how about if I phrase it that way? Are they more casual? Hey, I want to try something, or is it more of them have an agenda? Oh, this is going to be my second career, or going back to the whole pitch class, for example, I got a pitch I specifically want to do versus, like I said, the first option of, I want to try something new.
There are plenty of people who are just curious, who do say like, yeah, I want to try something, but it's usually with a bit of an agenda. It's not, in other words, it's not, this just popped into my head and I said, why not? It's something that they've been working on and wondering about for a while. And even if they start with sort of no set agenda, like I'm going to figure out how to pitch this show. I'm thinking of another woman named Rocky, who is a young grandmother. She's 50. She lives in North Carolina. And she came to us basically saying, about 3 years ago, I know I'm funny, but I don't know how to write a joke. I just need someone to tell me how to do this. And she didn't stay and then go on to XYZ. She was just like, it's time. She had retired from a career as a high school art teacher, and which she hilariously hated. You'll hear about that in her stand-up. And she was just like, I want to know how. I just want to know. And so she had a plan. She didn't have a 5-year plan, but she was serious about this endeavor. Cut to, I just met her for the first time because she was just in New York doing her first half-hour solo show of stand-up as part of a comedy festival in New York City that was organized by one of our instructors who's kind of famous. And there were about 11 people in the show, and 6 of them came through us. And so Rocky's touring with her, going to tour with her show. She's also writing for a sketch team where she lives. This is what she's doing now. Like, this is it. So she didn't 100% have that in mind, but she knew when she started that she was serious about wherever it took her. So that's sort of a perfect example where someone may not be like, okay, I'm going to be the next opposite Ali Wong, but I am very serious about committing to this.
So a little bit more interest than just wanting to hit an open mic night, for example.
Which, by the way, we welcome that too, because also more often than not, they think that's what they're doing and they get hooked.
Yeah. Okay. So it made me think when you were talking about kind of this, is this all there is, right? There's this quote from Brene Brown where she says, I think midlife is when the universe gently places her hands upon your shoulders and whispers in your ear, I'm not screwing around. It's time. I feel like I and a lot of my friends have felt that way, right? Like,
yeah, let's do it. And that's, and there can be a lot of barriers to that. I understand why people wait, in other words, open mics, you said, Kevin, like many exceptions to this, many, but like, at least in people's heads, typically people are like, well, okay, how do I try stand up? I guess at some point I got to go do a mic. And I'm pretty sure they're all 25-year-old white dudes with hoodies and backpacks who are going to look at their phones the whole time. Like, even if they're like nice guys, like it's just not going to be my people. Right. And so that's obviously can feel like, even if that perception is wrong, it's going to feel like a barrier. So there's a whole lot of misperceptions and just perfectly natural, like reasons, air quotes, to not give this a whirl. So we try to help take those away. This is also a time when we're like, fuck it, we're going to try it anyway. Who cares what they think?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of effort in the 40s and 50s. Yeah. Okay, Lynn, are some people just naturally funny? Well, can anyone learn with our experiences, our life stories, and our opinions? Can we learn to put that in a comedic fashion?
Yes. So the answer to both your questions is yes.
Okay.
Yes, some people are naturally funny, and yes, anyone can learn. Because tell me what you think is going to be more successful. A person who is naturally funny and just is, and kind of shows up at mics and is funny, or a person who's has a sense of what they might want to do and shows up and works and works and works and works and works.
Yeah, the second.
Sure. Because there really is natural talent will take you pretty far, but it won't get you better and it won't get you hired unless you also understand the science and the practice. Like the rules of anything, like any great jazz musicians have to learn the rules, right? They have to learn. I'm sure that there are exceptions. I know there's people who are just who just do
right, prodigies. Yeah,
but by and large, your average pretty good jazz musician, had to learn, had to learn to play whatever it is, had to learn and practice, right? And practice. And then I think it was Charlie Parker who said, and that, then you forget all that and you just wail. You have to learn the rules first. You just have to, and you have to practice, which is another reason that typically a woman with 2 young kids at home is not going to be like, you know what, I'm going to do stand up, because she knows, I hope, maybe, or she'll probably be quick to find out that there's no doing stand up like alone.
Right. You got to practice with other people.
Right. There is Zoom, but still, you still have to. Obviously, we have banked on Zoom even before the pandemic. My vision was for this company to largely be online for all the obvious reach and scale reasons, and to find the people. All the funny people not all the funny people live in New York, Chicago, LA,
right,
Austin. So there's no stand up in a vacuum, but all these skills, late night writing, monologue joke writing, improv.
Yeah.
Even writing pilots, practice. And so if you do take someone who, for whatever reason, for the same reason that some people might be more intuitive cooks or some people might be more intuitive athletes, of course that's true. But if you take someone who is a little bit intuitive and then you match them with practice and hard work, that's Rocky, who I was talking about. She's worked her butt up for the last 3 years to get where she is. But is she naturally hilarious? Yes, she is. But she knew that she had to also learn how to do it.
So you were on the comedy circuit back in the 90s, correct? What was it like then? And how is it different now?
So I'm going to ask you and your listeners to hold two conflicting truths at once. One is that everything is so much better than it was, night and day, unrecognizable. That's one truth. The other truth is that everything is terrible.
Yeah.
And they're both true at the same time. So they're both true. What do I mean by that? I mean that, let's talk about what's great. The number of, frankly, overwhelming number of platforms and ways that you can practice various types of comedy, make yourself visible doing various types of comedy, and not always and not magically, but find work through those platforms, especially digital, is beyond compare, beyond imagination. When I did comedy, we had to send postcards about our shows. That was the truth. And we wanted a video. We had Pete Guzman. Shout out to everyone in New York in the 90s. And it was Pete Guzman. We had Pete Guzman, who somehow managed to be at every single comedy show with his video camera. I don't know how. On the club. Shot your set on VHS, and you had to go pick it up from him in Midtown in 2 days. That's what it was. So now it's incredible. And also there is a demand for not just a presence of diversity, but a demand for it that didn't exist before. And you really can go find a friendly open mic. You really can go find inclusive bookers who are inclusive, and you really can find people, and even just not just the cool people on the ground doing mics, but the demand for inclusivity and diversity in the stories that we see on television is through the roof. So all that stuff is true. Also, I can't believe this, but it is still not just possible, but kind of normal for a stand-up show to have only one woman. That happened a few weeks ago. Another one of our older, quote unquote, comics was in town, and she was an actor. And then she said, Lynn, I blame you for my stand-up career, because now she's doing stand-up all over the place. And what show should you go see? And we looked on the calendar for a very well-known local club, nationally known local club. And we were like, who's on tonight? And they have several rooms. So and several shows, there were 6 different shows, and all of them had one woman. This year. So we have a club in Boston, also a very well-known club in Boston. They were having, it's called Knits, because I have to say that because the title rhyme. They had a show called Chicks at Knits, which, first of all, why do you even do that?
Right.
It's all chicks. Come on. Yeah, I get that it rhymes, so you can do better. And also, why do you, just even still having all women shows is bothersome to me. You're all just comics. Can we please just, and so that was no big deal, right? But the image for the show was the comics, their faces, photoshopped poorly on the bodies of naked Barbies.
Oh, God.
Am I it's I'm too tired to even be angry. I'm just
right.
Come on. And a couple of the comics commented on Instagram, that's funny. And I don't even care if an individual or two of the comics liked it. That's not the point. Right. for nothing, Nick, you've just shown us that you don't care about your women comics or your audience.
Correct.
I'm not going to that show.
Nope.
I mean, all due respect to the comics who are working hard. That's not the point, right?
Yep.
And even like the New York Comedy Festival, sorry, New York Comedy Festival, but the first group of headliners they announced included Louis C.K. Do I think that Louis C.K. has the right to work? Of course. He's going to be fine. He can work anywhere. Of course, absolutely. Whatever. He can go do his job wherever he wants to, right? I mean, not wherever he wants to, but like, to me, like New York Comedy Festival being like, hey guys, guess what? First lineup announced. It's Louis C.K. said to me, oh, we don't care about women. It's fine. Do it. It's fine. But like, do you remember that he was the same guy at the other end? That guy. He's that guy.
He's still that guy.
And you had to hire. I don't think he, whatever. Like they had a choice to like hire him or 1 bazillion other talented comedians with followings. And making that choice to me is like, and so there's a real short memory. And so again, it's like, I kind of can't believe we're still dealing as good as it is every day. Like women can be Ghostbusters now. And also I still can't believe we're dealing with this same shit that we're dealing with in the 90s and before.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about like only one woman in a show, for example, how much of that do you think is the old boy network, so to speak, versus supply, that not enough women are feeling comfortable to be entering this profession? Or just say not half the comics are female, there's only 20% are female or whatever. And it was a matter of just encouraging more women to get involved.
There's no problem with supply.
Okay.
There's no problem. I mean, sure. I mean, there's no really good count of the numbers because it's not an industry where there is a count. But like there is no problem. We'll try harder.
Right. It's like when we have what we call manels at industry conferences. Instead of panels, they're just all white dudes. You're like, really? I know 6 women who would fit on this conversation. Ask me. Yeah.
It's laziness.
My husband and I took a trip to Austin, Texas, and there was a bunch of other couples there that we knew. And one of the people said, oh, let's go to a comedy show. And we thought, great. So they arranged it. And I guess the only thing that was open was the later night show. Okay, we got there. We're all people in our 50s, right? Husbands and wives for the most part. 5 minutes in, we are like, oh God, this is not for us. We are not the intended audience. How does someone who's not necessarily, an expert in the comedy, how do we find, say, for me, a midlife woman who would like to hear people I relate to as the comics, how do we find the shows to go to instead of going once and going like, ugh, I'm not coming back up?
I think the key is to ask for recommendations, follow comics you like on Instagram, get on their mailing list.
Yeah.
And pay attention to where they are. Or just if you're like looking one night to go one night, you can certainly always look for them on Instagram. Because I guarantee you they will have sort of finished, polished clips of themselves on their Instagram or TikTok, and you can get a sense of their vibe for sure.
Got it. So if there's a name I don't recognize, do a little research and yeah. Okay.
So,
good tip.
Well, that actually inspires 2 divergent questions for me. Hopefully I'll remember both of them. First one is, if you see a headliner, I want to go see this headliner. Do these shows get arranged that if you like the headliner's comedy, chances are the opening acts, the undercard, whatever you want to call, they're going to be of a similar style or
the word out
rating of jokes, if you will, that if the headliner is rated G, everybody else is going to be pretty good. Or if they're X, then you can expect the jokes up and down the line. Does that give you any guidance?
Chances are that there might be an opener and a headliner, or an opener, middler, and a headliner, or something like that. Chances are all 3 will be loosely the same vibe like at the most basic level, but their styles will probably be different because especially like the headliner doesn't want to feel like they're repeating stuff, like that the headliner wants to stand out, and they should. But they also want people who are going to have the crowd just in heaven and wanting more. And sort of they want a crowd that's sort of primed for them, but not with the comics who are so much like them that it's going to be repetitive. Which one is the word? I don't know.
Either one.
Either way, they both work.
So chances are you'll feel like you went to a show that's all of a piece, but even with each comic having a different individual style. I can't speak direct. I mean, so for, I don't know, probably that speaks to like how blue they work. Blue means, how dirty.
Inappropriate.
But I was the only one who still used that term.
I mean, people just really talk about being sort of clean or not clean, but even then it's not. Yeah, I mean, comics is all in different styles. And I don't know if there's a really good way to tell like who's going to work bluer than someone else. I guess you can, again, look on Instagram. Depends on your preference. But yeah, and there's a lid for every pot.
So, Lynn, for maybe people in our listener group that don't think they really want to pursue comedy, but are interested in your life experience and you having gone on this journey yourself, but also helped shepherd other women and non-binary folks, do you think there are lessons from the comedy world that apply to kind of greater life, especially in this phase of our career?
And I don't just think that. It's fine.
Oh, tell me.
Yes. There are at least, I think, 2,000 last time I checked, PubMed or whatever it was, studies that link humor to all sorts of life and wellness outcomes. A lot of them have to do with work, which we are all still doing. So, for example, CEOs prefer to hire managers with hire people with a sense of humor. People prefer to work for managers with a sense of humor. And I'll come back to why in a second. Fortified people prefer their brands to be funny. I'll come back to why. That also speaks to work. Like that means someone's got to create brands, and not just company, but branding and create the copy. That's a job you can have that I would count as a comedy job, right?
Mm.
And all those studies also talk about how just embracing humor in one way or another helps you. And these are sort of comedy specific things or things that you can see they're analog in comedy. They help you think faster, write sharper, read a room, and actually listen. That's a big misperception. People think comedy is all about talking. I would say it's like 75% listening and 25% talking. I made up that number. I don't know the percentage, but it's a lot.
It sounds good.
And it's a lot of, listening is essential, let's put it that way. It's not optional. It's interesting because what I would say, to sort of sum up what all of these scientific findings have in common, or one of the things that they do say very specifically is that humor inspires trust, which is really interesting. A lot of people say, and they're not wrong, that, humor is something that is a delightful distraction or medicine. It makes us feel better. All true. But some of the other reasons, they're more complex reasons that it makes us feel better, have to do with, again, trust. And that's interesting because there's something about, in some cases, someone has to make themselves vulnerable to make a joke. Sometimes it's a shield, but sometimes it's making yourself vulnerable. You have to have a keen perception, especially if you're not actually a performer. You have to have a keen perception of like, who's in the room, what's the joke, what's appropriate.
Right.
And when you nail that, they'll trust you because they know you're paying attention. They know you're reading the room. They know that you're speaking to you, right? So I'm not just talking about like rando guy in the office with a lampshade on his head. Like that's fine, whatever that, or not. But I'm talking about the kind of thoughtful, doesn't have to be like smart intellectual humor, but thoughtful, even a thoughtful aside in a tense meeting or whatever it is, inspires trust because someone's reading the room and paying attention and saying what needs to be said and not saying what doesn't. There's also, again, silence is also part of, knowing when to stop is also part of humor. So, and even just the direct skills of, again, being able to write the thing that you want to say the shortest is also a skill that you can get other ways, but also from practicing comedy. I really love all of the stuff that speaks to how comedy, again, doesn't necessarily take us away as just a distraction that, like, and God knows we need it, all true. But the way it brings us together, because what's the typical structure, classic of any typical joke is setup and punch. And typically what happens between a setup and a punch is, the comic is, or the writer, whatever the context, is sending you in one direction and you think they're going this way, and then, oops, surprise, it's a twist. So in order to follow that comic from direction A over to direction Z, you have to get it. Like, you have to be able to like go around that sharp turn with that comic. And that means that, and not everyone will get the same joke.
True.
When you're able to sort of stay in the car on that sharp turn, that means that you all who got that joke have something in common.
Ah, yes.
So that's how it brings you together. That's how, in some cases, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm not the only crazy one. And that's how, can it stop wars? Probably not. But can it make people feel seen, connected, heard, belonging, sense of belonging, all those things? Absolutely. And yeah, there is the part where this is about comedy itself, not about kind of humor in your world, but there is the sense of how actually it can be in your world, how humor, adding humor appropriately to certain difficult topics can make those topics easier to engage with, discuss, etc. That's true of like performed comedy, and that's true of just humor in life.
Yeah, for sure. As I reflect on it, I feel like the comedy that I appreciate the most does come from a little bit, maybe a vulnerability, but of that person sharing their personal voice, their own experience, as opposed to kind of what they think will make people laugh. Is there an element of kind of finding and honing and maybe uncovering your own voice in this too?
Yeah. One of the most important things you can do, especially if you're thinking about doing stand-up, 100%. But also it translates, right? Because there's a reason why we spend an entire class in our stand-up boot camp on your persona. Now, comics take 10 years to develop their personas, but we'd start thinking about, you're starting to think about it today. Like, what's your vibe? Are you shy? Are you full of energy? Are you scared of everything? Like, whatever. There's a million ways that you can frame it, but what's your point of view? What's your lens? And that's important for comedy and in life. In comedy, it's important because you really need to be writing jokes that no one else can write. And you can all write about the same topic. Like, we used to do workshops with teen girls, and typically their topics were, and I say this with love and respect, but their topics were parents and school.
Yes. Yeah, that's what they know.
So their topics were,
That was their world.
so their topics are family, right? Siblings, whatever. So their topics are all the same, but they all wrote jokes that none of the others could, even though the topics are like, they weren't just like, you ever notice how teachers are boring? Like, they would talk about their own teacher. They would talk about their own sibling, not in a way that was like too much information, but like, and the same is true. But really sitting with that and having to really think about that in a class helps you think about how you write your keynote, or even just how you show up in your family. Like, I don't know. It's a powerful exercise for sure. And I do think it makes for the most interesting comedy.
So I noticed when you were telling some of the stories earlier about students, they weren't in New York where they were from. So do you do a lot of stuff remotely, or can at least some of this initial stuff be done remotely before you have to go to the big city to?
Our headquarters and almost everything we do is online. And that was, again, my vision from before the pandemic, to be able to provide opportunities for comedy careers for people who didn't already live in New York, Boston, Chicago, LA. And when we do improv, we actually teach improv for Zoom in ways that you can use this funny little rectangle, as opposed to kind of like, well, I wish we were on stage, but we'll make the best of it. Like, I mean, I know that this is not a visual medium, but like, it's kind of funny when someone just goes like this, and then they're like, and it turns out props are funny on Zoom. Props are not funny in stand-up comedy in real life. Props in Zoom are hilarious. My water bottle's not that funny, but, but like, you can do so much specifically with this medium that we teach you how to work with. So you can get a whole lot of practice. It doesn't necessarily help you practice how to like move the like lower 2/3 of your body on a stage. But even that, we have people who actually feel more comfortable. Like, they've set up a mic in their basement and they'll do our classes on their mic. So you do, like, of course, there's no substitute for the live experience, but it doesn't mean that you can't get a full experience online. You can't entirely recreate the live experience, but you can have a full experience. But yeah, we have plenty of people in New York, but we do have people from all over and like small towns and the whole thing who don't have an obvious place to go learn and practice where they are physically. And again, to be staging, especially to learn how to do TV writing, whether it's like late night writing or writing a sitcom or a dramedy, you don't have to be in LA to do that. And you just have to be in LA if they hire you. So, which we'd like to help you. We'd like to help make that happen.
So it sounds like what you're saying is specific to you, but also probably more of a general comment as well, that as women, they're done with the first career, they're ready for something new. There's one less excuse available to them to say, oh, well, I'm not near any place where I can learn this stuff. I can do this stuff remotely. I can put my content out remotely. I don't have to have, in this case, a comedy club nearby. I got Instagram, I got TikTok, I got YouTube, I got fill in the blank. Is that correct?
People can really build almost entire careers doing what we used to call, or kind of still do, call front-facing comedy, where, you do characters or a character on TikTok. Or when Sarah Cooper, who was doing Trump a long time ago, and Allison, oh God, Midlife and Better. Oh my God, I literally know her, and she's the one who does Kamala. Like, she's a stand-up here in New York, but she built a huge following just doing videos of her insanely hilarious Kamala, and loving Kamala impression. So she did leave her house to do other things, but to build she didn't need to leave her house to build that particular part of her career, which really got her on got her a huge national following. So, and just another sort of nuance that I'll add is the women we have who are midlife and better are not necessarily done. Rocky was, but others are not necessarily done with their previous careers. So, for example, we have a member who is not only a podcaster and not only working on her TV pitch, but she's also a veterinary oncology surgeon.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
By day and probably night. So
Right.
she's also just and she's been a comedian actually for a long time. So that's a juggle right there. But now she also is I got to write a show. And we have another one who's a medical doctor for humans who is developing a game show. So, and doing both. So it's really just whether it's that they, again, are now looking at empty nest, or just maybe they started saying no to a bunch of things that they finally said no to. So they have a little sliver of time for, more time for their own, I would say, professional creativity. They're doing it.
Awesome. All right, Lynn, let our listeners know how they can find you, follow what Gold Comedy is doing. And then also, we've talked about the classes, but are there other kind of things that people might want to know about?
Sure. Thank you. So to answer your questions in reverse order, yeah, we have tons of classes all the time. Obviously, we talked about stand-up and pitching. We also have video editing for comedians, so you can learn how to do all the stuff that we were just talking about, even with simple tools. We have, oh my God, we have sketch writing. We have comic acting. We have all sorts of production classes, like producing digital sketches, which is, I think, the future, not the only future of comedy, but part of the future of comedy. We also have teams. We have teams who make digital sketches, like Lonely Island and I Think You Should Leave, but not all white dudes. And we have extremely friendly weekly open mics online. We have a weekly Q&A with a comedy celebrity or pro. So we've had Margaret Cho, we've had the entire cast of Somebody Somewhere, Jeff Hiller, who just won an Emmy, Bridget Everett, all those people, Murray Hill. We've had Rachel Dratch and Bloom, Rachel Dratch from SNL as an advisor. So we get fancy people. And then they also get people to come talk to you, whose job you didn't know exist, but now you want them, whether they're in production or development, talent management, all those things.
Cool.
And so you can pretty much fill up your week. But again, it's all online, so easy peasy. And you can find us at goldcomedy.com or on Instagram at goldcomedy. If you DM or email us and tell us you heard me on your podcast, depending on what you want to do, I'll hook you up with a 10% discount.
Woohoo!
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll put the link in the show notes for sure, in case you're walking the dog or driving right now.
Yeah, so that would be on a premium class or on membership, whatever it is, we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lynn. We so appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. So here's the problem with doing these episodes, Stephanie, is we start off going one direction and we end up somewhere else, or we just never go that direction. So that being said, sorry, we don't know anything about her being a Tanya Harding lookalike.
We forgot to ask her about the story. We got so into the conversation.
Anyway, Stephanie, what did you learn today?
Oh my gosh. The conversation went to places that I wasn't expecting, which of course is the fun part about talking to these people that we find doing interesting things. I wrote down her quote, "Comedy is power," because when we make people laugh, you make people listen, and how it's important who does comedy and who we see doing comedy. which I think probably is her whole motivation for creating Gold Comedy and getting more women and non-binary folks out into this space. But you could tell that she's thoughtful. She's looked at the research about the power of comedy and humor, and she's passionate about it, which of course makes for the best folks doing work in the world, but also conversations.
Yeah. I like one thing we were talking about of modern technology, if you will, or, the social media, that between Zoom, between the social media platforms, there's a lot of avenues for you to learn, such as, taking her classes and getting your content out there or just trying it.
Yeah.
And without having to commit yourself to travel to New York or to try to find a comedy club in purpose of this conversation. You can do this from your own home nowadays so that you don't want to leave for whatever reason, because of commitments, because of health, you just don't want to leave the freaking house. You don't have to. So there's less, as technology gets better, there's less reasons for you to say, I can't.
What we were talking about with Lynn is not so dissimilar from episode 87 with Claire Waite Brown, where we were talking about kind of getting back into creative pursuits in midlife and later in life and the value of that, right? Maybe comedy just being a subset of those creative pursuits and the value of it, right? I mean, I appreciated when she was talking about the instructor who said, I love my college students and what they bring, but these women, in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they come fully baked. They've got a point of view already. They've got opinions, and maybe they're not quite as inhibited about speaking them and working on finding our own voices. I think it's really powerful.
Absolutely. And this is what we're trying to do with this podcast, is to say, listen, you have things you want to do. You have things you want to say. You have these, hopes, the proverbial hopes and dreams. And what we were trying to do with this episode and a lot of other episodes is say, hey, share yourself with the world. Have fun. That's what this time is about, is having fun.
I agree. Why not, right? Like, I think we are in the effort period of life. And here's another avenue that may be great, perfect for some people. But I'm more on I want to be the audience of the comedians, right? I have found several comedians on Instagram that I love following. Callie Beaton from the UK is one of them. She is freaking hysterical, often talking about this midlife and empty nesting and menopause. And she happens to be divorced and she's got her older father, right? Like all these issues that a lot of my friends and clients are facing. So I want to consume this comedy and have it do those powerful, good things in my life. And maybe not just on Instagram. I'm inspired to go out and try to find some live shows, because being in the room, laughing with other people, really, it really does feel magical.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being with us. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lynn. We'll talk to you next time. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from her.
Be sure to subscribe to the show and please share it with your friends. Show notes and more information available at takebackretirement.com. Huge thanks for the original music by the one and only Raymond Loewy through New Math in New York. See you next time.
Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group, American Financial Management Group, and Sophia Financial are separate entities. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. This information is not intended to be a substitute for individualized tax advice. Please consult your tax advisor regarding your specific situation.